size of that balance. And like you said, there is no anti-pattern of one versus the other, but I think it just puts in perspective the spectrum of options that are available and meets your needs, which actually, if I take a step back, takes us to this question, and I believe almost all of us on this panel have seen paradigm shifts and initiatives which have now become the norm. And I'm thinking of things like the rise of the TCP/IP stack. I definitely saw TCP/IP rise and video become something which goes on that TCP/IP stack, or the rise of hypervisors. Now, Kubernetes, I believe, is in the same class, and we've crossed the sixth birthday. So one of the questions which I think I commonly get, and for a lot of folks who are coming into Kubernetes, do they view Kubernetes as 6 years old or 6 years young? Where do we stand in the maturity curve? And I hope we can sort of all weigh in since we all touch it. But maybe Joe, I'll let you take a stab at looking at it from your perspective, because obviously you've been involved in a lot of the initiatives here.
Yeah, so look, I think at this point, Kubernetes is well established, across the enterprise and across all the major public clouds, right? So I think people are relying on it, including our own customers, for mission critical apps, and feeling that it has the stability, the security, and the reliability that they need, right? But it's also still evolving in key areas. A few key areas that we're focused on. One is expansion into new workloads, right? So even though the Kubernetes core is stable, or stabilized relative to where it was, 3 or 4 years ago, now you're seeing expansion into these new workloads like GPU-enabled workloads, like analytics, like data services, and so that's particularly exciting because it's finding new use cases for that platform. The other is in the area of management. So Dave mentioned the importance of multi-cluster management, the best way to sort of drive that automation and visibility across multiple clusters spanning multiple clouds. We've also driven a lot of work around operators and CRDs to bring more day two management that's specific to each service. So I talked about that in my session. And then last, I'd say a lot of the new innovation is also kind of sprouting above the platform. So when you look at projects like Istio, projects like Knative, projects like Argo CD, Tecton, and on and on and on, Quarkus, there's just a lot of exciting new innovation that's assuming Kubernetes as a base, and then really building in new capabilities above that platform to address key use cases and key users at the end of the day. So,
yeah, Dave, Danny, I mean, where do you see the balance? How would you think about where we sit in the spectrum today?
So I'm going to go with 6 years young. And not because Kubernetes is not a mature platform. Kubernetes definitely is a mature platform. We see tons of enterprises getting value out of it. The reason I say 6 years young, because we're seeing a lot of new patterns, and we're starting to go outside like the original use cases that Kubernetes was designed for. So Joe mentioned things around like the operator pattern. These new patterns are evolving all the time. We have new technologies like service mesh. And I think that's one of the things customers have to be aware of. Some of the new things coming into Kubernetes are much younger and not as mature there. But a lot of the patterns already in place are very mature for running production workloads. So I go with 6 years young just because it's such a evolving and quick moving space right now that we're seeing a lot of new patterns evolve.
All right, that's fair enough. Danny, I can't let you off the hook. You got to take a side.
Yeah, I'm going to go with 6 years young too. And my reasoning is very similar. And that is, it's taken, and this is true of every infrastructure, I think it takes 5 years to eliminate some of the complexity of standing it up, right? So it's just a fact that up until, I'll say, a year ago, it was easier to download a LAMP stack and install something and get it going as a monolithic thing. But we've crossed that. I think we're getting into the adolescence of it. But I think it's still 6 years young because of the complexity. We're only now emerging from the complexity. It's becoming a lot more simple. It's becoming easier to scale. I think it won't replace all of the infrastructures that we have in place, but I do think that we're now at a point where the majority of the industry is going to say, hey, this is an option for it. And that's playing out actually just, we look across the customer base. There was a survey recently by Enterprise Strategy Group, and everyone has different numbers on this, but they did a survey of 700 organizations. 35% of them were using containers today in production, and 52% of them were using it in some model, some way, form, or fashion. So, DevOps, perhaps before production, but we've crossed that 50% mark in my mind. We're now in adolescence. Give it another 2 years, and I think it will be mainstream across all segments, all verticals.
All right, no, that's good to see. I mean,